Okay, so today we're going to talk about heredity, and we're going to talk about traits and alleles and what that all means. First off, some reminders. Pause and rewind whenever you need to. Keep watch for test question alerts and write down all highlighted vocabulary. There's going to be quite a bit this time, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. So first of all, what is heredity? Heredity is the passing of physical characteristics from parents to offspring. And it all came out of research done by a person named Gregor Mendel. And he worked in the garden of a monastery. And he always wondered why the pea plants had different traits such as height or color. And a trait is basically what we're going to define as a specific characteristics. And Mendel formed the foundation of genetics. And genetics is the scientific study of heredity. So the study of passing of physical characteristics from parents to offspring. So here's what Mendel did. He worked with pea plants. And he at first decided to cross plants that had contrasting forms of a trait. He started with purebred plants. And purebred means that they have the same form of a trait. So think of it like a dog or a cat. They all have the same breed. So like if you have like a purebred golden retriever, the two parents of that said golden retriever puppy were golden retrievers. So he crossed purebred pea plants. So he crossed a pea plant that had purebred tall and a pea plant that had purebred short. Today, these are called the P1 generation or the parent generation. The offspring are called F1 and F2. That's all you need to know, just F1, F2. When I say it in class, you know what I mean. So in the F1 generation, which was the first generation after the P1, Mendel found that he would have all tall plants. When he crossed them again, for the second generation, a quarter of them actually came out short, while the other 3/4 of them were tall. And he wondered, how was this possible? And he also found this happened for color, seed shape, pod shape, and seed color as well. So what does this all mean? Mendel reasoned that the factors or sets of genetic information must control the inheritance of traits. So whether it was a tall plant or a short plant, whether the seed was yellow or green, whether the seed was wrinkled or smooth. And genes are factors that control a trait. And they're what control your traits too. Alleles are different forms of that gene. And there are two types that we need to remember. We have dominant alleles and recessive alleles. Dominant alleles are traits that always show up in the organism when the allele is present. So as an example, brown hair. Brown hair is a dominant trait. And we always represent dominant traits with a capital letter. Recessive alleles only show up when the dominant allele is not present. So blonde hair. Blonde hair is typically recessive. So in order to have blonde hair, you have to have two recessive alleles in your genotype, which we're going to talk about later on down the road. And we always represent that with a lowercase letter. And that's pretty much all right now that you need to know in order to continue with the project. So for next class, be ready for the screencast quiz. And be ready to analyze some traits that you have, and we're definitely going to record that as data. And I'm going to take you through that as we move on. And that's all I have.